We're all excited about Auburn's 2024 class, but really, what should be our actual expectations?
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yahtzee.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The everydayers know him, but we are joined by Auburn Message Board Legend, Charlie5 for a little Charlie Tuesday action. A lot of energy, a lot of hype around this class. What are the expectations? We'll also discuss a little Auburn linebacker action. Will they lead Auburn in tackles this season? And then we'll be joined by Auburn defensive tackle Jason Jones in this show as well. Look, you and I talked a lot over the weekend about all the exciting headlines that were coming out of all these official visits and these players teasing and the people tweeting out bat signals and the eyes emojis. So I'll pose the question to you, Charlie5. What should people's reasonable expectations be for this 2024 Auburn recruiting class?
I think you're going to see, number one, it seems like the staff really enjoys like multiple guys going at once, like a little like a railroad choo-choo train effect. Like, let's get the momentum going, and it may die down. So we may see some like cycles of like that. I think like the early part of July, you're going to see that too, and hopefully again at the later part of July. But as far as rankings go, like I said this on the live reaction to Joseph Phillips. I said this on the Walker White commit. Like, there's nobody that's off limits. There's nobody that's off limits. And this staff, Hugh seems to be able to, when he pinpoints a guy, he seems to be able to put together like some type of plan that he can get that guy. So
sure.
Like I just don't know who at this point in time, like you look at some of the 5 stars that we're in on, you know, you got Perry Thompson, you got Cam Coleman, and there's some big time offensive linemen that Auburn's going after as well. Like where could they end up? I mean, I could easily see this being in like 8 to 12 range classes. Honestly, like that would be anything above that, I'd be sort of a letdown, I guess. We're already at like,
yeah, that was my following question. If we're sitting here with the 15th class,
correct.
Is that an L? If that's the case,
I would say that would be a disappointment. I would say that would be a disappointment. At the
feels
end of
like
the year.
it right now. Sure.
Yeah, I would say that for sure. And you know, again, our average player ranking is way up there in terms of like where we stack in the country. So we don't have a very large class, but that class could grow exponentially. I would expect by the end of July, we could be touching, you know, around 13-ish commits. And I think at the end of July last year, we were somewhere around like 5 or 6. And we had one kid that,
right,
you know, we weren't even 100% sure would qualify academically, but we, you know, took for some momentum type things. But I like where we're going. I like where we're going. These official visits were fun. The trying to decipher what bat signals are. We still have not really honed in on the bat signal to commit ratio of time, like after it goes out to when it hit. Like we still haven't quite figured that out yet, but it's okay. It's okay. It's
got to be on purpose, right? Because I think they just want buzz and discussion and maybe even a little chaos and pandemonium. Like I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, especially Coach Aldridge. I mean, he's just going to tweet stuff out. It's like,
yeah, it's just out there.
What is this about?
Yeah. No, I do. I think they get excited. Clearly a few guys pulled the trigger. At least one, maybe multiple guys pulled the trigger over the weekend. And people are talking about like, you know, I hope it's, you know, we didn't do all this for, you know, 3-star or whatever. But like the difference is like everybody was there hanging out at the time. So like everybody was into it and everybody was jacked. So I'm sure if somebody committed, it doesn't matter who it is, everybody was going to be fired up. You know what I mean? And I
also, it was somebody in the Locked On Auburn Discord because somebody said like, gosh, I hope it's not about a 3-star offensive lineman. It's like, we would have killed for a 3-star offensive lineman 365 days ago. Get out of here with that.
Yeah, and a tackle at that. I think he plays. I think we're talking about. I think most people are talking about Khalil House. He played.
He's probably a guard at the next level, but still, I'll take it. I'll take it in a heartbeat. And if that's the case, I mean, you just don't see an interior offensive lineman like ranked that high typically.
Yeah, and again, there could be 100 reasons why he's ranked. He's started off unranked. You know, did he camp a lot before now? Did he play on a very good football team? Like, is there reasons why he didn't have a lot of exposure? And now that he's on the radar, you start to see a lot of different schools try to offer him. You know, Ole Miss really tried to get in the game.
Yeah.
So I'd be fired. I'm always fired up for offensive linemen.
The story that I heard is Freeze watched him specifically for like 4 or 5 plays in a row, and they're like, offer him, please. I want him. And it's like, okay, well, that's enough. That's enough for me. It's either you trust Hugh Freeze or you don't. And right now, I think we all should trust Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, shout out to Jeffrey Lee at On 3 for that.
Okay, was it Jay Lee that did that?
And Cole, I think from that camp. But yeah, like a guy that watches your head coach watches him do, have some reps. Doesn't say I don't even know. Did he like say, hey, what's that kid's name? I think he just said, we got to get that kid. We got to offer that. We got to get off that kid. We'll figure out everything else later. That kid can play. So
bring him to the house, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's house him.
Let's house it. Take it to the house. No, there's so many different ways you can go with that. But yeah, I like having these flurries of commits. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm okay if we, if we save some up in our pocket, and like we want to have a big run. You have 3 or 4 pop at a time. Like that's fun. That's fun. A
podcast standpoint, let's spread them out as much as possible
for content purposes.
Do a reaction show, what it means show, like that'd be great. But I don't think we're gonna get that.
No, I don't. I think it's gonna be okay. It's going to be an explosion. Every time we have it, it's going to be an explosion. So
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. So anywhere between 8 to 12 is what you think reasonable expectation should be right now.
I would say, as much as I have always been a fan of Hugh Freeze, as much as I pull and have been on that side, I would be disappointed in him if we had, unless, barring, I don't know what it could possibly be, but like barring some disaster, like I would be very disappointed. And I would say so.
Let me ask you this, because I think this is realistic. We're 15-ish. We're slightly behind that 12 mark that you're talking about, but maybe we're top 8 or 10 in average player ranking, and we have another big portal class. Is that okay?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I would take that. And I think that's probably what you're going to see.
If we have one more year of big portal class, then I think we'll have some guys ready.
At least 1 or 2, because you got to have, at least 2 years to develop offensive linemen. You need at least 2 years to get a lot of your bigger SEC defensive linemen developed. Right. And that's really where you build the team. And then you can kind of supplement, you bring guys in. A wide receiver can play early, like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson. Those guys can play early. Running backs can play early. You can get DBs sometimes that can play early and be, especially corner, that can be factors. Yeah. And then you can kind of pick and prod where you place them where you got to get them from the portal or wherever. But
sure, it's
going to take a while till you can wean yourself off of those linemen from the portal. So I would be cool. I would be totally fine with a high quality player, and we may not rank, inside the top 10. Like I said, somewhere around, like a 10 or 12, as long as the quality of player is up there, and then bang the portal again like you did this past offseason, and have a big December and January.
Think it makes you better.
Totally, 100%.
Think it makes you better than you were before. No question about it. All right, Auburn has done a lot with the linebacker position. Who could lead the Auburn Tigers in tackles this season? We discuss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Baseball is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than America's #1 sportsbook. Of course, that is FanDuel, and right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Charlie5, do you like free money?
I don't hate it.
I'm with you. So that's $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet does not win, just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to join today. Don't miss out on your chance to snag that no sweat first bet. $1,000. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademark used with permission. Charlie5, our guest on this Charlie Tuesday. Jason Jones joining us in just a few minutes. But I think the discussion as we kind of speculate, like, what is his team going to look like? Who's going to be that guy in the middle of the defense that leads Auburn in tackles? Leaving spring, it seemed clear to me that Austin Keys would probably be the safest bet for that. Of course, a former Ole Miss linebacker. But that room is just so, like, unclear to me, because it's like, it seemed like Austin Keys was usually the guy, but then you'd have Woodyard cycle in, you'd have Eugene Asante, Wesley Steiner was coming on late, Cam Riley's the most proven guy based on what we've seen before spring, and then they go out and get a guy who you're a big fan of, Larry Nixon. So I'm going with Austin Keys right now, but that linebacker room is super, super, I don't want to overuse the word interesting, but like confusing, maybe.
Deep.
Because
how about deep? I mean, possibly,
yeah, sure.
Possibly it could be a pretty deep room.
Okay. That's cool.
You go from, I think we went from almost two players to like 5 or 6 that could possibly, play and contribute.
Well, and it seemed like Eugene Asante
has.
I mean, it seemed like Eugene Asante and like Wesley Steiner. It's like, were they good enough to play? And then it seemed like this coaching staff worked with them, and now they're solid, like SEC players. Maybe. We'll see.
Sure. I'm a big Larry Nixon guy. I really like Larry Nixon. I like bringing in 100 tackles. You add 100 tackles to the roster. And I think the way he plays, like the position that he plays, he's probably going to be on the field a fair amount. And, guy that can just find, have a nose to find the football and make plays. I would not be surprised if he doesn't necessarily take over to begin with. I think he could be a guy who eventually steps into, having contributing a lot and just making having production while he's on the field. So I'm a big Larry Nixon guy. I don't think you don't leave a place where you had 100 tackles where you could easily go do it again or more. And then come into the SEC unless you feel like you're going to play, or you've been told, or not necessarily that you will play, or that you have a good shot to compete. I'm going with my man, Larry.
Yeah, there's got to be some self-belief there for sure, which you need as a linebacker. But I'm with you. I just have a hard time believing that the conversation did not at least hint at you would have a very real chance to be a potential starter if you're going to come with your last year of eligibility. I mean, it's similar like with Shane Hooks and Jair Shorter. And it's like, these guys are going to play because they wouldn't have come here if they didn't think that, or at least have some kind of assurance that they would be taken care of in their last year.
I also would not be shocked if like a linebacker, because there's so many that can play, is not the leading tackler, because they're going to be spread out. That production is going to be spread out between so many different guys that can play and rotate in. Like, that would not shock me at all either. Like, there's just so many dudes. I think now.
You think that many guys actually play?
I do. I think there's at least. I think there's at least 4 to 5 guys that can play right now that you probably would not see a giant drop off from one to the other out of those 5.
Is that they're all good, or is that they're all fine?
I think they're all good they're good / fine. I think it's a fine to good type situation. A fine to good type situation, like somewhere right in the middle. I think they're all very similar. How about that? And
who are your 4 then?
Yeah,
Austin,
so you got
Keys, Larry Nixon. Who are the other 2 in your mind?
Keys, Larry Nixon, and probably you keep talking about it.
It really seemed like they liked Wesley Steiner. It really seemed like this coaching staff
out of spring, his name was really big. Then you got Cam Riley and you got Robert Woodyard. And then we don't even hardly talk about Demario Tolan, who is probably the most talented of the whole bunch. that, he came on late last season as a freshman. Like, could he be another guy that, later in the season rolls around and he's a factor. So bunch of guys, I'm telling you, the more you think about it, if you really like put pen to paper, like that room is very intriguing.
Can I tell you something just to think about a few years from now that may get you excited?
Yes.
Joseph Phillips and DeMario Tola next to each other.
Woo.
That's some athleticism.
Put Phillips anywhere on the field, man. That kid. Yeah. He looks like, to me, what's funny is so Jeff Holland came in as a middle linebacker out of high school. And their measurables are identical. They're like 6'2", 230. They're long, and they're not like incredibly fat. Like, they don't just like burn you off the edge, but they're so wiry, bendy, flexible. It just seems like they just like vapor past offensive linemen. It's like you go to block them and there's nothing you can get your hands on. It's the weirdest thing, but they look so similar to me.
I've been saying that Joseph Phillips is 250 because that's what his 247 page says, but he's listed at 235 on 3, and he's listed at 230 with Rivals. I like that much better.
I think when he measured in at camp, it was like 6'2", 230. I think at the camp whenever he
like that much better.
Me too.
Because when he was committed, because that was a big reason he was like considering Georgia, is because he wanted to play some off-ball stuff. And it's like, at 250? You can't do that. Yeah. That makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, and I still don't know that his skill set is middle linebacker. I think he's like a roamer. I think he's the guy.
I think he wants to do both, and so you tell him that he can do both. You let him do both.
Yeah, you let him give him a shot at whatever he wants to. But ultimately, I think he's going to settle in that 6'2", 6'3", 240 range and be like a 3-tool type linebacker player that can fill gaps for the run. He can rush the passer, and he can drop back in the flat, cover a tight end, a little bit of everything. So man, the linebacker room is that could be the unsung position group that has like blown up in such a short amount of time, from 2022 to 2024. Like, it could be incredible.
Well, and that's a position group where towards the end of spring, Hugh was saying like this room's gotten better. This room's gotten better. And it's like, good. That's great.
Had to have it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Had to have it.
All right. Before we jump into our conversation with Auburn defensive lineman Jason Jones, Charlie5, before your internet cuts out, how can they hear everything that you have to say?
I'm on borrowed time. Every time we get going, it's just borrowed time.
It's been great so far. Hurry.
You can find me on Twitter at _Charlie.
Dude, you got me. You just got me. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, _Charlie_5. You can find me in the Locked On Auburn Discord, the Auburn Live, the Corner Message Board, or weekly on the Dad by Golf By.
All right. Jason Jones joins us talking about what they're working on this summer, leadership, new additions, and more right here on Locked On Auburn. Joining us now, Auburn defensive lineman Jason Jones hanging out with us. And so this offseason, you're kind of attacking preparation for the season because you're playing multiple positions on the defensive line now, not just that traditional nose guard, but also that 3 technique. How important is that to you, and kind of what's the mindset when dealing with that, Jason?
Yeah, so I think it's extremely important for a defensive lineman to learn and do different positions, especially when you want to go to the next level, because that's how you bring more value to yourself. So God forbid somebody goes down, right? And I play the 0. I was like, okay, well, this guy can play the 4-eye, and then I can move stuff around here. And, he played this over here in high school. Let's try him over there. So it just opens up a lot of different things for multiple people for you being able to play different positions like the 3 tech versus the 0 technique.
Is that something you're seeing more with this defensive line group than maybe we've seen in previous years at Auburn?
For sure. I think Roberts and Garrett are going to allow us to play us in multiple positions throughout the whole year, so we can get different looks and stuff like that. So we aren't predictable.
Yeah. How interchangeable is like the nose guard spot versus the defensive tackle spot, or the defensive end spot and that jack linebacker spot? I mean, how different are those positions when you kind of pair them up that way?
I just think when you go down the line, all of it requires a little bit more speed.
Mm-hmm.
Like the nose guard, you're pretty much in the middle. You don't got to move a lot. The tackle, you move a little bit more. The defensive end, you got to move a lot. And then Jack, you got to learn how to. Even the defensive end, you got to learn how to drop. But really, the Jack, you got to learn how to drop and play coverage too. So they're all pretty much similar in a sense that they're the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just every position requires you to be a little bit more athletic, a little bit more faster, a little bit, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. As far as guys who have stood out, veterans and leaders like yourself, like Marcus Harris, what are you guys kind of preaching to everybody right now as you guys go through summer workouts and all that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of new guys, whether that's transfers or whether that's freshmen. And I think the number one thing that we want to see is effort, is going to be hard. Like you're coming to a new environment, new conditioning program and everything like that. It's just we want you to show effort. Yeah, if you're not doing it right, okay, you might not do it right. We'll coach you up on that, but we can't coach effort. We just want you to give effort. That's my biggest thing. And don't complain and don't whine, because that's not attractive. Like that makes your teammates start turning on you for real.
That's a culture thing, right? Like embrace it. Embrace it. We're getting better today.
Exactly. And football is not easy. Like you're not always going to have the most fun. Yeah, losing's hard. Getting beat's hard. But how are you going to deal with it later on? Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's the point of summer workouts is you simulate the failure, right? I mean, that's what working out is you simulate the failure. So next time when that gets here, you're better through it. You mentioned some of the newcomers. Who are some of these new guys that have kind of come into campus? They're now enrolled this summer. You haven't seen them play football yet, but you've probably seen them kind of, go through and approach, an SEC workout, an SEC strength and conditioning program. Anybody impress you early on?
I believe a lot of the smaller guys, like the newer DBs, have done an amazing job adapting. I know Darren Reed's doing a good job of adapting. But I think the biggest one for me, and I know he came in January, but it's Keldrick Falk, and I feel like he's came on a lot. Like he's came on a lot more as a pro. I think he's understanding, and it's really good that he's understanding now rather than later how to be a pro about stuff like taking care of your body, eating right, and working out and conditioning and stuff like that.
So do you think he's kind of paying attention to that because the NFL is certainly a possibility for him, or do you think that's just kind of the way this staff is treating all the players now?
I think so. I think it's a little bit of both, but it's also on his end. I think he understands the opportunity that he has here, and the only person that's going to waste that opportunity is him. If you know what I mean. Like the only person that can screw that up is him. I think he understands that, and I think he's doing an amazing job right now.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Jason. There's always a lot of talk and rumors about, player-led workouts and player-led practices. And the cliche one is like, the quarterback getting receivers and throwing to them. Defensive line, what do you guys do? What's the equivalent for you that would be equal to a quarterback throwing to a wide receiver and going through routes? What's the equivalent for you?
I mean, we just continuously do drills. I think we hone in on the technique and the fundamentals part as much as we can now, because we get a lot of time to ourselves to do that. I think that we do a lot of drill work, a lot of prepping, a lot of install, and then that's how we get our quarterback to wide receiver, quote unquote.
Yeah,
working, and we go on the cans. We go over the plays on cans. We do a little.
What is cans? What does that mean?
So, like, you got 5 cans, 1 laid in the center, 2 the guard, 2 the tackle. We're just running through our plays on the cans. So, like, if you're supposed to be in a 2 wide, be on like the inside shade of that guard of that can. So that's
Okay, got it. So just kind of the mental aspect of, so that way you don't have to think as much in a game, right?
Yes, exactly. Especially when you get to prep, you don't got to think as much because you did it so much during summer.
I mean, do you guys try to like block each other or anything like that? Is that any kind of part of it? Is it all against like sleds and stuff?
Yeah, we give each other we're not allowed to use sleds and stuff right now, but we give each other looks like one-on-one. taking on different types of blocks. So that's the most we can do right now, as far as like, I guess you could say, hitting each other.
Got it. I didn't realize it was that limited. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, the mental side of it, as far as alignment, are you guys having to do more of that in this defense than the previous defense?
Yeah, because we have so many different plays and formations and adjustments now. Like, you got to really pay attention to the formations. If you line up wrong, that's a 50-yard touchdown that you just got right there, that you just gave up.
I mean, how many different like realistic options are there? I mean, is there a ton for like an interior defensive lineman? Like, is there a ton that you've got to focus on?
Because like within one play, we got at least four or five different checks that you got to look out for. And then within those few checks, you got to maybe change the play or shift the front or change something up.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to see what you guys do defensively, because I think it's going to look so much different than what we've seen in the past, because I mean, Roberts' scheme, I mean, it's all over the place, especially, you know, with the defensive front and then the linebackers. And his big thing is you don't know who's coming, right? He likes to send four, but you don't know which four it's going to be. And I'm probably totally butchering it, but that's the way it's been explained to me, folks that have covered him in the past. But I can't wait to see it. And it seems like all of you guys have gotten so much more athletic over the offseason, which is going to be a big part of it too.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
That's okay.
Ron has done an amazing job of like mixing up fronts and giving us different types of formations and looks. And that, again, it's going to help us in the game, because teams aren't going to know what we're running exactly. Obviously, we have our simple stuff, our 3-down stuff, our 4-down technique stuff. But like every game, we're going to have different types of game plans for different types of teams.
I think it's great. I think that is something that we've lacked over the last few years. So that's exciting. That's exciting for sure. Jason, there's been some kind of talk, chatter, hoopla about a group of players being upset from an NIL standpoint about the new NCAA video game that we're finally getting. It's been so long. But my understanding of the deal is every player that's in the game is going to be given $500, but a group of players aren't happy with that. That's not enough. What are your thoughts on that?
You serious?
What does that mean?
I'll forget the money. I'll be in the game for free.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, if I get the opportunity to be in a video game, I'm gonna do it. As of right now, as you know, being a college athlete, I don't care. I want to be in a video game. Like, I've been playing. I played NCAA since I was a kid. Now that's back, and people are caring about money. I want to be in the game for free. I don't care if I get paid. I just want to be in the NCAA game. You know what I mean?
Don't turn down the $500 though.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm gonna take the 500. I'm gonna take the 500. I'm just saying, if they said we got no money, then I wouldn't care either way.
Yeah. Have y'all talked about that in the locker room at all? I mean, I imagine a lot of people feel that way though, that they just want to be in the video game.
I really don't pay attention to stuff like that. I didn't even know that was going on, honestly.
Gotcha. No, that's probably the smartest way to approach it. But Jason, I just wanted your thoughts on that. Thank you so much for your time, as always, my friend. And we'll talk again soon.
Yep. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Jason. Thank you so much to Auburn Message Board Legend Charlie5 for joining us on the show today. We talk a lot of Cruton later in the week, really all throughout this week and probably next week as well. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.